Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast, your home for all things food and pop culture. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. Just a reminder to follow me on socials, Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content. And a couple of program reminders. We're continuing to do Top Chef recaps all season long, so make sure to like and follow on YouTube or your preferred podcast player of your choice so that you will be notified of when new episodes drop each and every week. As always, I have my fearless co-host, all things chaos, the chaos man himself, Chef Amadeus. Chef, welcome back to the pod. Appreciate you coming back again.
Not a problem, man. I'm enjoying this whole process. Watching these chefs perform and having conversation with you has always been just a lot of fun. I look forward to it every week.
Awesome. Me too. It's highlighted my week. I appreciate it. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about a couple of the little montages there at the beginning that I found kind of interesting and your thoughts as well. So we kind of open up with Manny and Kevin. They have developed this relationship, this bromance, this best friend relationship now, and we're working out in the gym. And Kevin has this kind of epiphany moment, right, where he says he needs to adapt. Like he's not doing as well as he thought he was, and he needs to adapt and do better. And look, he was my number one pick. And apart from maybe one dish, he is consistently on the bottom, and he's just not doing well. So I'm really hoping for my sake, he gets it together and starts putting out some dishes. What do you think about their Manny and Kevin kind of talking about, oh man, we're on the bottom and having to kind of get it in gear?
Well, here's my thing. There's a saying, steel sharpens steel. And the more you get around people with talent and skill set, it makes you look at yourself and your skill set like, man, I need to step my game up. Because if you look at, he came in like, I was on Top Chef in France, all these things here. That was a good show, but now you're with a group of chefs that, everybody's pushing it. Everybody's pushing it, and you don't know who's gonna step out. And as you're watching, as everybody's watching these shows, you see that the host had to come in and say, "Hey, y'all need to step your game up." And those like, man, I'm at the bottom all the time. That weighs down on your ego, on your culinary journey. It weighs on that. Like, man, I thought I was really good, but every week I'm at the bottom. What do I have to do to not be at the bottom? And
Yeah.
and that either pushes you or it will separate the big dogs, and they don't want to be constantly on the bottom, because you have to look at it like this here. All these chefs have they came from somewhere, and they have a great reputation where they came from, and now it's on display for the whole world to see how good. So you say you won the James Beard Award, but you're not doing James Beard Award skill set.
Yeah.
Like Tom said, it looks like a culinary student trying to do something.
Yeah.
That should not have came out of his mouth.
Right. And the thing with Kevin that's bugging me so much is he he honestly probably should have gone home already, but he's been saved by virtue on being on the winning team in a few challenges. And because that team won, he wasn't on the bottom, therefore he didn't go home. But he probably deserves to have gone home for a few episodes back, which kind of brings me to season 6 as a whole. I mean, we're 6 episodes in, and again, apart from a couple of real standout dishes, most everyone's dishes has not been to the level of what I believe is Top Chef worthy level. I I've been spoiled from the last
But
2
here's the
seasons.
thing, though. But here's the thing. Think about this. If it's not Top Chef level for you and you're not a chef, what do you think about? And I said this before. What do you think about the chefs that didn't make the cut?
Right. Yeah.
What do you think that other chefs that are watching this show are saying? Like, man, I could have did that. I would have did this. Why didn't he do that? So you're, and this is a great platform considering You're not a chef. I'm a chef that's been around amazing chefs and watching this and some of the things that some of the dishes that they're doing, you're like, wow, that's not top chef quality of work. And like I say, when Tom said this looks like a culinary student work to a group of chefs that have James Beard Awards, James Beard nominated, all these things there's something missing in there. The ones that have been doing well, they're pushing everything. That's why when we picked our teams, I didn't go for the ones that were doing James Beard Award and all those things. If that wasn't part of my criteria, I went for their background, the Puerto Rican, the Dominican, the pitmaster, being a female. That's how I picked my team, and it's so far so good. But like I said before, there's a lot of cooking going on. So throughout the rest of this season, now it comes down to technique, and then the middle is being destroyed now because they sending people away. Now it's down to 10 people, and the smaller it gets, there's no middle now. You at the top or you at the bottom.
Yeah, a couple of things too is I need for the team challenges to be done until Restaurant Wars, because I think the team challenges are hiding a lot of the people that are in the middle, that maybe should have gone home already, and they're hiding in the teams that have the good cooks and the good chefs, and they're hiding in there, and they're probably not going home when they should. And look, like you said, I'm not a chef. I'm just a Top Chef fan that's been watching this show from season one. And I think for the last few seasons, particularly 19 and 20, I know you said you were away from Top Chef for a while, so I'm not for sure if you've seen 19 and 20, but 19 and 20 were probably the two best seasons of Top Chef in terms of cooking, in the entire 21 seasons so far. I mean, the World All Stars especially was really good. They were putting out dishes in the first few challenges that could have been finale dishes on this season that we're in right now. And you had somebody like a Buddha Low that basically hacked the game, and you have him and all these other chefs that are forced to raise their game to meet Buddha where he was, and that's why he won seasons 19 and 20 back to back. And there's just no Buddhas in season 21. There's nobody, I think, right now that's really stepping up and stepping out and standing out and forcing people to up their game. There's no LeBron, there's no Michael Jordan that's forcing everyone to be better. And we're six episodes in, and I feel like there should be I should be able to tell the stories of the chefs through their cooking through six episodes. And I just don't see that happening right now.
Well, it comes down to consistency. Look at what Danny and Rosica did when they did the architect challenge. If they kept that going separately, then you can have that conversation. But they've all like, it seems like they peaked out, and I don't like when cooks of that caliber should be like a learning computer. Every dish they do, it leads to another dish, another technique, or something like that. But it seems like Tom and all the guests, the hosts, everybody's they're pushing them to find that one person or that group of people that are just blowing the competition away. But there's nobody doing it. Even we'll talk about this later, but even with Sue in Top Kit in Last Chance Kitchen, he was killing it. But now I think he has too much time to think about things, and that's why that's a handicap for him right now.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that in the elimination challenge. It's just that after watching the Top Chef peak in the last two seasons, like I felt like I just binged watched the '80s, the late '80s and the '90s Detroit Pistons, Chicago Bulls teams, and now I'm watching And now I'm watching like the summer leagues. I'm like, what is happening right now?
What is happening?
Like what?
Wow, he said
I
the
mean,
summer leaves.
it's. I'm hoping it gets better. I mean, I love this show, and if I didn't love this show, I wouldn't have this feedback, and I wouldn't be critiquing it as hard as I am right now. But
Well, if you see the look on Tom's face, on Kirsten's face, they're like, wow, because especially as the host of a show that you won, you're expecting a lot more.
yeah,
And you could tell the look on her face is like some of the challenges, they don't have to talk much about who's going home or who's staying.
right,
And and it's more of that than versus the, like when they did the architect, they knew who won that one, flat out by a big gap. But after, besides that, it's like, man, yeah, you're going home. You're going,
yeah,
and then they have to pick the worst of the worst to go home or to go to Last Chance Kitchen. And at this point, it should be close. Like, it should be going home because you missed a technique versus a bunch of things, whether it's texture, whether it's flavor combinations, whether it's did you follow the assignment or anything like that. It should be a technicality that you go home,
right,
not a bunch of technicalities. One, because if everybody is bringing their A game, somebody has to have an A minus. That's who
yeah,
should go home, not you know, the high grade is a C, and then you got to pick the best of that.
yeah. So let's talk about Kalina and Sue. Kalina and Sue are back, baby. They walk into the hotel room, and everybody's like, "Oh!" Everybody's kind of happy slash not happy to see Kalina coming back. It's like, weren't you just? Didn't I just eliminate you last week?
But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
And then Sue comes in. Nobody knows who Sue is. And Manny was funny. He said, "Who is this guy helping Kalina's luggage? Helping with Kalina's luggage?" And
He's the bellboy.
yeah,
He's the
he
bellboy.
was the bellhop. So for those listening to the pod, if you haven't been watching Last Chance Kitchen, if you're only watching the main competition, man, you are missing some really good cooking happening from Sue. He is putting out banger after banger after banger, and he's going to be somebody to look out for in this season. I think he's doing really well, and Kalina, I think Kalina did so well in Last Chance Kitchen because she didn't have enough time to get in her own way. And she just had to put her head down and cook. And I think when she had to do that, she was really knocking some stuff out of the park. So happy to see them back. It was really interesting to see them interacting with Sue, trying to find out who he is. And then we get to quickfire and we learn a couple of things. So Kristen says, "I love when shit gets shaken up." And because two chefs came back, because Tom decided to bring back two instead of the normal one, now the judges can send home two people at any point in the game, no warning. So they just have this threat of a double elimination hanging in the air over every elimination challenge. I love that twist. It adds a little bit of drama. What do you think of that little wrench in the works, having bringing back two and then being able to eliminate two at any time? What do you think that does to the chefs that are there?
It should inspire them to not be on the bottom. Um, it should inspire them to say, "Wow, okay, so I thought I was doing good," but like they all say, they all have to step their game up. And it's one of those things as a chef. It's a punch to your ego. It's a punch to your talent. It's a punch to, like I said, they all come in with these amazing resume, and I thought we got rid of her. The hell she doing back here? Because they all know she's great. They all know she's great. But now you got a new guy coming in that they know nothing about except for her, and it just puts them in a walking on eggshells. They have to. Now, what's going to happen is, knowing that at any time two people can go, they're going to step their game up and try not to be at the bottom and try to perform at the top of their resume. And I think that's why they did it, and that's looming over their head. Some two people going home. They'll know when, but two people are going home.
Yeah, and I hope that as well, that they it forces them to step up their game and finally put out some Top Chef worthy food. So looking forward to that. And I can't imagine being on the bottom three where originally you're thinking, oh, I got a 33% chance of going home. Now you got a 66% chance of going home because of two going out. So should be interesting as this unfolds through the season. So let's take a walk through the quick fire. So the challenge was in the quick fire to make a dairy based dessert in 45 minutes. And the winner gets $7,500. So Milwaukee is known as the frozen custard capital of the world. I love a good frozen custard. My introduction to it is like from Culver's, the chain, kind of basically based out of Wisconsin.
Right.
I love Culver's. I love no free ads, but I love Culver's concretes, and they're very good. Guest judge is Christina Tosi from Milk Bar. I don't know if you're familiar with her as much, but I'm a
Yes.
fan. I like Christina Tosi. I'm not a huge watcher of MasterChef, but the episodes that I did see, I think she's a great judge. Gives great feedback, and obviously she's known for her desserts. So what do you think of custard? Are you a fan? Do you like custard? Do you eat a lot of it, or are you more of a gelato ice cream guy?
I like, well, to be honest with you, my favorite dessert of all times is a sorbet. I like a really good sorbet. But when I do have custards, I like a good custard that it's smooth. It has, it's a nice, smooth, silky smooth. I like it to be have a flavor that is, sits on your palate. Even after you're done with it, it just sits on your palate. Strawberry custard or anything like that. That's what I like. And I like the custards when I go to restaurants and someone has custard. I like to see how creative they can go, how creative they can be with the custards. Because I go to a lot of restaurants and I go there just to see how they do their dishes, whether it's dessert or anything. And I just went to one restaurant here in Jacksonville and just to try one of their dishes. Very impressed with it. So yeah, I like going to places to try certain things. And like she said, she went to a lot of places to try custard.
Yeah.
Can't tell you which one I like and don't like.
Start a flame war on the internet. So
Oh my God. Oh, I'm sure if she said which one she didn't like, it would just shut the internet down.
yeah, you'd have everybody coming out. No, you picked the wrong one.
Oh,
But
yep.
so let's talk about a couple of the interesting things during the quick fire. Manny said desserts aren't in his wheelhouse, but so he's trying to keep it simple, make a pretty easy ice cream, I think, with a churro. Sue was interesting. He's like, man, I'm not used to having to cook with 10 other chefs in the kitchen and running all over the place because he's been in Last Chance Kitchen, so he's only had to cook against one or two people. The part that piqued my interest a little bit is this kind of passive aggressive adversarial relationship building between Laura and Dan. Dan was asking for some dark chocolate and he's like, hey, dark chocolate anywhere? Anybody got dark chocolate? Laura had it on her station, didn't say a word. So I'm not for sure if Laura is doing this on purpose. Like we talked about the recipe cards in the last challenge, her rifling through them instead of just picking one, her going over the budget at the store and using up more than her kind of allowed allotment and everybody else having to sacrifice for her dessert. And now you have Dan asking for dark chocolate and Laura's just like radio silent.
Why are you the way that you are?
What do you think about it? Do you think she's doing this on purpose, or do you think she's kind of like what Dan said, in her own head, kind of just doing her thing?
Nope. I believe she is doing that on purpose. And to be honest with you, I've been asked to go out for a couple of shows. After I went on the Food Network, I've been hit up to try out for other shows. And one of the things I don't like is when chefs are being, what's the word I want to say?
Like typecast?
Well, she when they're just being mean and not a team player and sabotaging and just because the things that she's been doing everything she's done has always hurt somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
It hurt somebody else, whether it was the team or individual. It's mine, 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 and I don't like that. that's why I didn't go out for some of these shows. When I was on the Food Network, when they asked me, they said, when they said, "Would you like to be on the show?" I said yes. I went through everything, and my first question was, "Do I have to live with anybody?" And they was like, "Well, no, we're just gonna put you in a hotel room." I said, "Okay, cool, I'll do it." And the reason I did that, I was in the military, and in the military, you have no choice who you sleep with in your berthing. And on the ship, I had 24 people in one berthing. And in that 24 people, there are people who snore. There are people that are just hygiene. It's just so many different things. So that when I got the military, I'm like, okay, I don't want to stay with anybody. Can't do it because it's just too many obstacles there. And that's one of the reasons, because there's so much cutthroat. And I have PTSD by doing those things like that. So I'm not a fan of what she's doing and how she's doing it. I don't know how the other chefs feel about it, but me personally, no, can't do it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how this develops through the rest of the season, and is she going to have these passive aggressive things keep coming up, because she's starting to become the villain of the show. So let's talk about the bottom three and the top three in the quick fire. So in the bottom, you had Manny, Dan, and Danny. So Manny made a fried churro with orange blossom and lemon whipped cream and strawberry. Sounds delicious, but he was on the bottom. He wasn't surprised. Christina said it was tasty, but it had too much moisture, so it didn't have the characteristic crunch that churros are supposed to have. I think he knew that too. He's like, he was putting his whipped cream on there. He's like, oh man, I put it on there too early. The churros were still too hot, and it just like melted into this like puddle. And
Yep.
I love a good churro, but yeah, I mean, he didn't manage that time very well. But Dan was on the bottom too. He had a dark chocolate pudding, macerated plums, basil, and fried baguette. Kristen said the pudding was too thick, like peanut butter, and it should have been lighter. And even looking at it on TV, I was like, "Oh, that's a thick pudding." when they did like the beauty shot, right, when they were describing the dish. And then Danny had a cream puff and black sesame pastry cream. Christina said the puff was undercooked. For me, looking at, I mean, I can't tell if it was undercooked or not, but looking at the visuals, that gray color on that pudding was really off. Like gray food looks weird. So what did you think about these bottom three?
Well, they knew they was going to be on the bottom.
Yeah.
They knew that.
Yeah.
And like I said, with the whipped cream on the churro, he knew that. Like, damn it, I should have waited. But and here's the thing: when you're doing competitions, one of the things that as a judge, what we look at is if you put your plate up before everybody else, then we get to look harder at your plate, because now you had time to fix what the mistake we caught. So if you put it up 2 minutes early, in those 2 minutes, you could have let the churro cool down a little bit, whether you put it a chill blaster, whatever it is, to make that happen. And he didn't do that. Like I said, they made those technical mistakes, and they knew that as soon as they put it up. And here's the thing: that's a bad feeling when you put a dish up and you're like, oh man, I should have did this, I should have did that. And once the waiter grabs it,
it's out your hands.
It's done.
Yeah.
Once you put it on the judge's table, just go to church and pray to God that it comes that they say, okay, we'll let you slide. But yeah, like I said, I've been in many competitions and judged many competitions where once you put that up, and when I tell the kids, I always tell them, I said, once you've done cooking, there's nothing else you can do about it. Once you turn it in, don't overthink it, because it'll drive you crazy. It will drive you nuts thinking about, man, I should have did this. Oh man, I should have did this. So yeah, that's what I think about that. Like I said, they knew what was going on, and they couldn't do nothing about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the top three. You have Kalina, Michelle, and Amanda. So Kalina, coming back from Top Chef, or coming back from Last Chance Kitchen, top three in the quick fire. So she had a salted caramel and rum custard, rum caramel, mascarpone, and creme fraiche whip. Christina said the caramel was really smart and savvy. Michelle did a corn cake with mascarpone cheese, basil cream, and lemon zest. Christina said that she really conceptualized the dairy in a beautiful way. And Amanda did a cheddar biscuit shortcake with banana pastry cream and vanilla chantilly. Kristen said the cheddar biscuit was the salty balance the dish needed. I'm going to say it sounded like it shouldn't have worked. When she was describing the dish, a cheddar biscuit and a banana pastry cream, I'm like, that's weird, man. That's weird. But, after they got talking about it, my mom, she loves a melted American slice of cheddar cheese on her apple pie slice. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, that's weird. But, when Kristen said had that salty balance, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But, it sounded like
Well,
on paper it shouldn't have worked, but it did.
But those are dishes that are a cultural thing, like the cheese on the apple pie, applesauce with pork, apples with pork, and the world famous does sugar belong with grits. Some people are like, no, and I'm one of those like, nah, I can't do that. But like I said, it's a cultural thing, and to us, it sounds horrible. But for the people that do it, they're like, oh yeah, we do this all the time. Yeah. So, but like I said, she put those flavors together and made it work. But that's her style of cooking. That's
Yep.
why I say when you go to these chefs' restaurants and you try something, you got to find out what was their idea of putting that together, because it's their menu. So they may grew up in the Midwest or Seattle and moved to Chicago and combined these flavors together. So like I said, she did a good job. I was impressed with her and Michelle really, really well.
Yeah, Amanda's was really creative. Didn't think it should have worked. Apparently it worked. But the winner was Michelle. Michelle won the quickfire challenge, so she gets $7,500 with her corn cake and mascarpone cheese. So good job with Michelle. So let's get right to the elimination challenge. We have guest judge Matty Matheson, fresh from his starring turn as Fack on the FX hit series The Bear. Did you watch The Bear at all?
What? Come on, man. I'm gonna tell you, I watched The Bear and I was mad.
Why were you mad?
I was very disappointed. The main reason I was disappointed because I had to wait a whole new year for number 2 to come out. Because I mean, from the very first show of The Bear, I was telling people, this is not Hollywood. This is restaurants. Every aspect of that show is a restaurant.
Yeah.
From the crazy, and that's what people don't realize. The craziness that you saw on The Bear, I guarantee you talk to chefs, they're like, yep, I know somebody do that.
Yeah,
somebody do that too.
I talked to chefs that watched The Bear and said they couldn't finish it because it brought back too many like PTSD, too many thoughts. It's like, man, it was stressing me out watching it because it is such a lived experience. So I love The Bear, and I did season recaps of both season 1 and 2 of The Bear on the Eat Your Content podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and watch those episodes.
Well, when they come out with number 3, let's do that again, because I like to say I was a fan of it. I was so much of a fan of that show because of the authenticity of it. Even from the part where what's her name, the new sous chef, when she came on, people was that pushback that happens all the time. The drugs, all that stuff there, been there, done that. No, so many. Yeah, that was just like, okay, I get it. I'm into it now. I'm there. But like I said, that PTSD was kicking in when they yelling and everything like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So but yeah, like I said, you do that again, let me know. I'll be more than happy to be your co-host on that one.
So great show. Love The Bear. Go watch it on FX and then come back and listen to my recap pods on season 1 and 2. Matty Matheson played Fack. I thought he was such a great character, and he's basically like Fack is Matty Matheson turned up to 11. He's got a hit YouTube show, and he's a chef and restaurateur of his own. I thought he was a great judge for the Chaos Cuisine Challenge, which is the challenge for the elimination. To create a dish that exemplifies Chaos Cuisine, make a dish that breaks the mold of culinary convention. I don't think anybody really knew what this was. And then the more Maddie talked and had this like fever dream of what chaos is. He's like, chaos is an amalgamation of where did you come from? What have you learned? Where are you going? What's your culinary voice? Chaos is every single day. And he says, take something, create it, destroy it, build it up again, throw it on the floor, throw it on the ceiling, grab things, use techniques you never used before. I think that just confused the chefs even more. And this was basically just like, do what you want. It was almost like just do whatever you want to cook, but make it different. Maybe do something that you would do, but present it in a different way. So when you heard this challenge, were you kind of like, what are they talking about?
Nope. I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I was expecting, when I saw the plates come out, I was disappointed because none of that was chaotic. It was all formed. It was just too composed. And I thought there should have been some splatter. I thought there should have been, different colors, different techniques. I mean, just so many different ways. So when I heard that, in my head, especially for those that were trying to do desserts, I was looking for something like, serve it on not just a little bowl that was complete, but get a plate, get a board, and splatter the chocolate on there. Or they could have got the chocolate, splattered it on like a parchment paper, let it get cold, and use that splatter as a mold, as a garnish, or use that splatter and put it on a piece of board or whatever, and put your little dots on there and put your dessert on that one. Yeah, like I said, I was looking for more chaotic, and I didn't get it. I didn't get that chaotic thing. Everything was too in their wheelhouse. It's like they would have done that anyway. No one
Yeah.
stepped out of their box.
So you're looking for more like Jackson Pollock style paintings on the plate in
Oh yeah.
terms of
Oh yeah.
that.
Just
Uh,
just go with it. Some streaks, some whips, and you could have made like a chocolate and just cracked it, and nobody made a brittle. You could have did a brittle, cracked it, sprinkled it on the plate.
Yeah.
You could have got a served it like some restaurants do. They put the paper on the table and splatter the whole dessert all over the table, and you got to eat from the. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
just could have been so much more of that. I don't do desserts, but I've seen some amazing desserts from chefs that do chocolate work and do some amazing things, and it's splattered. It's yeah. Like I said, yeah. I thought it was just yeah. The food was
So
probably good, but not chaotic.
right. So as the chefs are kind of scratching their heads, Amanda kind of steps up and says, well, this is kind of in my wheelhouse. And she kind of explains it in a way they'll understand. She said, it's cooking without borders or limitations to marry cuisine styles together and just kind of bringing it all to the plate. So I think that may have clarified some things for them. But they do get to shop a little bit. They don't go to Whole Foods because they're cooking in the Top Chef kitchen, which has a stocked pantry. And they get $150 in 20 minutes to shop at a few specialty stores. So they really can use these specialty stores to think about the chaos that they want to bring together. I as a concept of the challenge, I liked it. It's fun and it's also terrifying. As humans, we crave routine, predictability, and comfort, right? So we generally don't do well with change. So I can imagine how these chefs felt. Probably most of these chefs, they have their own restaurants or cook in high level restaurants where the menu is set every day. So they've been cooking the
Right.
same thing for years and can probably do it from muscle memory. Now you're basically telling them to do whatever they want. So they might freeze up thinking about that. So did you see maybe some of that happening throughout some of the cooks through this
Nope.
challenge?
I saw them right, like you said, they used to cooking the same thing. Like I said, that's why their plates look like something they would serve in their restaurant. And they went to an Asian store, which I'm a huge fan of Asian markets. And nobody grabbed any kombu, nobody grabbed any gimai chai, lapsang souchong, those type of things. Because with the kombu, you could have made a broth out of that. You could have made got the kombu and soaked it, sliced it real thin, deep fried it, served it as a garnish. You know what I'm saying? So you could have took it somewhere, but everybody stayed in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
That's what that was just blowing. And you had an Asian market. There's so many things in the Asian market you could have grabbed and had so much fun with that.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of the moments from the specialty stores that they went to. So they went to an Asian market, an African market, and a Latin market. I think my favorite moment was when they were at the African market and Kevin looks above the counter. He goes, "Oh, cocoa butter. Oh, that sounds delicious. I think I'll get that. Oh, wait, that's not food. Oh, that's for your skin. Oh, okay, okay." I was like, "Oh, Kevin, you sweet summer child." That was hilarious.
Well, like I said, I think his biggest hurdle is he's a he's a French guy cooking American foods, and they don't translate sometime for him. So that's why he made
Well, not just American
that
food, but
comment.
not just American food, but a pastry chef. Like they told his story
Yeah.
a little bit here where, he was cooking in France, but he wasn't happy and he just dreamt of coming to America and just kind of doing whatever you want to do. And he landed in Texas and became a pastry chef and he's been loving it ever since. So, kind of a fun story for him, but I thought that was hilarious when he was talking about cocoa butter. Now that would have
Yeah.
been chaotic if he bought some cocoa butter and then tried to use it in the kitchen. That'd have been hilarious.
Special.
So we talked about Sue a little bit coming in from Last Chance Kitchen, and you mentioned about falling into the trap of overthinking his dish. And he even kind of realized it himself as he was shopping. All he has now is time. Like before, I like what he said in his interview where in Last Chance Kitchen, you didn't have time to pivot. You just had to come up with a concept and do it. Here, you literally have hours to think about what you're doing. The drive to the shops while you're shopping, the drive back overnight when you're thinking about it at the hotel room. So you have all of these times to overthink it. And then Sue is saying that. He's like, man, I'm overthinking my dish. I'm like, so what did you think of that coming from the regimented? He just did 5 dishes in Last Chance Kitchen, 30 minutes or less, or 45 minutes or less, just banging them out one right after the other to coming to here, and it's a totally different environment.
Oh, and like I said, he's overthinking, and he's comes from a restaurant. A restaurant, they cook from what's in front of them. When they do their mise en place, everything is in front of them, and he knows what he's cooking. Or he has an idea, but to sit there and think about it and overthink it and overthink and overthink. I got a dish. I'm gonna do this, but then you get to the store like, oh shit, I got that. Oh, they got this. They got this. Now it changed the whole recipe. Whole
Hmm.
changed the whole plating. Like you said, on the drive home, man, I should have got this, or I should have got that. When I get back to the kitchen, there's so much food there. So, like I said, he had too much time on his hands,
Yeah.
and and his mind was constantly racing. I imagine when he was sleeping, he couldn't go to sleep because his mind is just running and running and running and running. So,
Yeah.
um, but it came out in his dish though that he was running and running and overthinking.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute too. Another moment I liked was with Savannah. She had a wild story about her concept for a dessert. So she was making some kind of dessert with mustard greens. Okay, right off the bat, sounds gross. Right? I'm not a big mustard greens fan in general, but now you're going to throw it in a dessert and you're going to make me hate it more. So, but she came up with this dessert. She said 9-ish years ago, and she was going to put it on the menu at the restaurant she was working at. And Maddie Matheson was actually FaceTiming her boss and was making fun of her for putting mustard greens on the dessert. Maddie said, "Don't put shit on that doesn't make sense." So it's almost this full circle moment, which I thought was really fun. I mean, Maddie obviously didn't remember until she mentioned who the chef was that he was talking to. It's like, oh, okay, I remember now. So she's saying she's going to make it make sense and prove Maddie wrong. I love that when and Savannah's starting to kind of come into her own in this competition, I think. But she has this like extra motivation with not only making this mustard green dessert work, but doing it with the person that originally told her it's not going to work. So what did you think of that?
Well, like I said earlier in the shows, every dish that they mess up, go to their restaurant now, it's gonna be on point.
Yeah,
It's gonna be on point. Because when they told her back 9 years ago, like that shit don't ain't gonna work, she was like, I'm gonna show you it's gonna work. So I can imagine how many times She's plated that dish, cooked that dish, and tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it. So now Maddie's like, it works. It works.
Yeah.
So all those chefs, like I say, every chef that's ever been on Top Chef that's been hit, and then they go to Last Chance Kitchen and they do it or they do the version of it and it comes out wrong, they get eliminated. I guarantee you go to their restaurant, they're going to make sure that it's on point when it's on their menu because they
Yeah.
have time to tweak and everything like that. So yeah, kudos to her. I like people that think, isn't she on my team?
Yeah, she's on your team. She's on
I
your
like
team.
I like chefs. I like chefs that just like, you know what? Screw it. It's gonna work. I know it's gonna work. I don't care what y'all say. It's gonna work. I have a dish like that. I do a Southern style cheese stick with a black eyed pea salsa, and the salsa has cantaloupe in it.
Oh wow.
And people like black eyed peas and cantaloupe. I put cantaloupe in there. Sometimes I put apples in there, and they like, man, that don't go together. But when they try it, oh man, it's just so. And what makes it work is the black eyed pea salsa is cold, so you got
Okay.
these flavorful black eyed peas, this cold fruit that has a different texture than the black eyed pea. So with
Yeah.
the apple, you got the soft, you got the little crunch from the apple. And sometimes what I've done with the apple is I've actually smoked the apple and put it in there. Oh man, it's just amazing. So that's what she did. She's like, it's gonna work in a dessert. So kudos to her. And
Yeah.
that's why I picked her on my team.
So before we get to judges table, any other moments from either the cooking or the shopping that kind of stuck out to you that you wanted to talk about?
I just wanted them to, when they go to these different stores, the African store, all these stores here, if they would have picked something that was like they've heard about it but never used it, let's just use it. None of them did that. They all picked things that were either in their wheelhouse or close to it. And like when I was on the Food Network, I did a dish um, with sorrel, and which was crazy because it was the first time I saw one was at my buddy's restaurant in Seattle, Island Soul. They do the sorrel Jamaican drink, and I was like, oh, okay. I seen the leaves and everything. So when I was on the show, I was like, well, let me use that, and I put the sorrel leaves in there with orange juice and rum and marinated chicken breast. They was like, what? Yeah, it just works. It just works, and that's the first time I've ever cooked with it. I made the drink, but I never used it as a marinade. But I'm like, the hibiscus leaves went well with orange juice and rum. Let's see what it works. And they loved it. Now, a lot of the judges said that was um, a different marinade than they're used to. But that's what you have to do as a chef being on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get on to judges table. So instead of a top three, they actually had a top four. So let's talk about those. You had Sue, Savannah, Danny, and Dan in the top four. So Sue made a General Sue shrimp with salsa verde and salsa roja. I thought the dish looked great. The way he plated it looked really good. And I'm like Kristen, I love crispy, crunchy things. I love texture in my food. And there was another guest judge, Sophia, that said she could eat 600 of them. So I'm with her on that one. But I'm happiest because, man, my boy Sue coming out of Last Chance Kitchen, coming out swinging, and in the top four. So Sue is in the top four there. Savannah was in the top four with her mustard green dessert. She did a potato souffle with golden milk, tropical fruit, and mustard greens. So she did it. She pulled off the mustard green dessert. Everyone loved it. And I got to tell you, I love weird food. I'll eat anything once. So if I saw this on a menu, even though I don't like mustard greens that much, I would have thought, man, that is weird. I want to try it. And
Yep.
I would have ordered it.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So
I totally agree.
Danny made a scallop show farsi with a yuzu koshu broth or foam. Sorry. I thought the dish looked beautiful. I mean, it was a good looking dish. Early on, Maddie and Tom saw some things that could go wrong, steaming the cabbage too early, etc. Looks like it came out, so he was in the top four. Dan did an I'm gonna get this all messed up. Okonomiyaki funnel cake with seafood, bacon, pickles, caviar, and herbs. Maddie thinks it could have been on the menu in a lot of restaurants. I agree. Again, another weird food. If I saw that on a menu, I'd order it. You're talking about a savory funnel cake with like the kitchen sink thrown in on top? Sign me up. I'll try it once. So the winner was Danny. I could not disagree more. I don't think Danny should have won. Danny did French and Japanese fusion. He did French technique with Japanese flavors, which isn't new. People have been doing that for decades, right? There's nothing chaotic about it, and it came out to be conventionally beautiful. The judges picked a very refined looking dish, and they ended up choosing the conventionally beautiful dish. It's the opposite of chaos. I don't think he should have won, personally. I mean, it looked great, but for me, my winners for this one should have been either Dan or Savannah. I think Dan and Savannah understood the assignment, and I don't mean that in the Gen Z slang. I mean, they literally understood the assignment. Savannah, I mean, who puts mustard greens in a dessert? That's chaotic. Dan having a savory funnel cake and throwing everything on it, that's chaotic. Agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought Savannah should have won.
Yeah.
I thought she should have won because, like you said, collard greens in general as a dessert, the thought process that you had to put in there, the technique that you had to do to cover up that green flavor, and yeah, she did a great job. I thought she should have won. I'm with you. You know, you asked for chaotic, but you pick conventional.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly right. I mean, the chefs were so confused on this challenge, and I think the judges were confused on this challenge because they ended up picking the conventional thing, and there was nothing chaotic about Danny's dish other than, okay, he might have steamed the cabbage too early if he messed up, but there's nothing chaotic about the cooking method. There wasn't anything chaotic about the flavors. It was, I mean, it was a beautiful dish. I'm sure it tasted good, but it was not the challenge. Savannah and Dan did better at the challenge. I thought the judges were so wrong on this one. And who am I, right? Who am I? I'm not a chef. I've not been on 20 episodes or 20 seasons of Top Chef tasting food. Who am I? Just this normal guy armchairing it, Monday morning quarterbacking this the next day. But in reading the online discourse of this episode, a lot of people agreed, and a lot of people thought Danny should not have won. So, good for him, but I don't think it matched the chaos cuisine criteria that we were looking for.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Like I say, Savannah with the greens is way out there.
Yep. So let's talk about the bottom two. So the bottom two were both on your team, Rosica and Michelle. There wasn't a bottom three. There was a bottom two, which when you think about a double elimination, this could be particularly scary. So Rosica did a crab and eggplant with mushroom conserva, dukkha, and a garlic tahini. Kristen said it had no flavor, and Gail thought it was slimy. Guest judge Sophia called it slug-like. That's not what you were going for.
But here's the thing. When I saw it, I was like, that looked... the color on it didn't look right.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed because, that's my girl.
Yeah.
That's my girl. But yeah, what did I say? It seems like they've all peaked and they're coming on the down, but you can't do that. Restaurant Wars hasn't even showed up yet.
Right. Yeah, it's a little early to hit your plateau. Michelle did a Vietnamese shrimp and pork arrayas, puffed rice, and herb salad. It was undercooked and overcooked. So Kristen stopped eating after one bite because it was under, like way under. She said it was pink. Tom's was over and called it meh. I was like, oh, that's awful. That's awful too. So you have two here. Rosica, if she had known it was under seasoned, she could have played that as chaos, right? I present to you a dish that looks like it has a ton of flavor, but surprise, it doesn't have any flavor. That could have been the chaos.
Listen, I was in New Orleans and I went. My friend there, she took me to a local restaurant and she told me, she said, "This food is cooked to perfection, but no seasoning." I'm like, "What?" And sure enough, I had a hamburger cooked to perfection, no seasoning. I was, I was like, "Wow!" And that's how they cook. I'm like, okay. So I was very disappointed in Rosica because she's been it,
Yeah,
killing
that's
it.
what's so weird is Rosica has been on a tear for these first, for 3 out of the 6 episodes. She was killing it. She ends up getting eliminated. This is another one I disagree with. Usually on Top Chef, undercooked proteins is a one-way ticket home. But apparently in this case, slug-like eggplant was a worse offense than undercooked pork.
Right.
I disagree. I mean, I like Michelle, but man, you serve me undercooked pork, you're going home. So that shouldn't even been a discussion. So I think the judges got it wrong on both, on the top and the bottom. Um, yeah, Rosca going home. My only hope is maybe she comes back through Last Chance Kitchen, because I did predict a Sue and Rosica final, and right now I'm wrong. So we'll kind of see what happens.
But like I've been saying the whole time we've been doing this podcast, there's a lot of cooking left. And there's so many different techniques that they have to go through, so many challenges that somebody's going to fall through. So just because my score is bigger than your score, I'm not celebrating. And I told you that from Jump Street. I'm not celebrating that I had 44 and you had zero. Not celebrating at all because there's a lot of cooking left. And you see Rosica, who was killing it, is now out.
Yeah.
And I was pulling for her because she's on my team, but I like her style, her she's cooking things that her grandmother that she cooked with her grandmother and all these things here. But yeah, like I said, a lot of cooking left.
Yeah, I was watching the judges table and kind of the food that everybody was putting out, and like I said at the top of the episode, I'm starting to get annoyed. I'm starting to get annoyed with we're 6 episodes in, and it's like we're watching chefs that have never watched Top Chef before, and this is their first time ever understanding what this concept is. They're all flummoxed on every elimination challenge. They just retreat back into what they know. They try to force the parameters of the challenge as opposed to looking at the challenge as an opportunity to stand out. And no one, 6 episodes in, there's no one coming through with stories. There's no, I can't identify these chefs really with anything. You
Well,
know?
here's the other thing too. The worst part about this is some of the guest judges have won Top Chef. So
Yeah.
they're looking, the host won Top Chef through Last Chance Kitchen. So their expectations is like up here.
Yeah.
And they're cooking down here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're frustrated as well.
Is it fun?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Absolutely not?
Zero fun, sir.
All right.
And when I
I'm
talk
sure
about,
they're
yeah, I'm sure they're frustrated. And when I talk about stories, I mean, when you look at previous seasons, and I talk about Buddha a lot, one because I had him on as a guest, and I like him as a person, and I think he's great at this game. But you look at Buddha, and you knew that when that Buddha was going to cook, he was going to be a tactician, he was going to be a technician. He's going to pull out all the technical stops. Previous season with Sarah Bradley, and in her season in Kentucky, you knew she was going to make sure that her Southern heritage and upbringing is going to shine through on every plate, no matter how unsouthern the challenge was going to be. With Gregory Gourdain and his season, just like Sarah, you knew Haitian flavors were going to find their way into the dish. And I feel like, put Haitian flavors kind of on the map in terms of the casual diner. Like with Kwame and Eric Ajapong, you knew that they were going to bring African flavors and make African flavors the spotlight on their dishes. And with Michael Voltaggio, you knew you were going to see something avant-garde. And that's what made Top Chef exciting to cook. You wanted to see how they were going to tell their story within this concept of a challenge, and I'm just not seeing that with these chefs in season 21. I'm hoping this changes in the next few episodes and through the season, but I don't know. Like, I can't put my finger on any one of them and say, okay, I know this person is going to cook this way on this challenge. I'm excited to see how they they do that, how they take this concept as a challenge and put their fingerprint on it, and nobody's doing that yet. Thoughts?
Well, my thought is this. I agree with you on the fact that, you know, you should cook what you from your culture. So when I was on the Food Network, my background is Puerto Rican and Southern. So I did a lot of Puerto Rican and Southern dishes. My first dish that I did, we had mealworms, crickets, and scorpions. Okay, so I made my first dish was called Sweet Nana because I made a sofrito with the bugs and everything like that, and that came through. The the salsa that I made, that's part of making a sofrito on top of some meat, and as we talked about why I picked my team because they cook from their culture, but it seems like they're losing their culture as they go through these obstacles, and nobody's pushing their culture to the next level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you need to elevate your food. I've worked with a lot of Haitian chefs and Jamaican chefs, and we had a conversation on my last podcast, and we talked about taking their food and elevating it. And nobody's elevating it, even though it's not, Indian food or Southern or uh, Dominican or whatever. They're just not putting that forward. They started off like that. Manny, Rosica, everybody started off with their culture, but it seems like when they get week six in, they're like, man, we're just gonna put some good food out there and call it a day, and it fell flat.
Sorry about that. That was my cat was trying to get into the podcast. I apologize for that. She was crawling up
um,
all on my desk. But but yeah, so like what you were saying, even in your time on Food Network, you were cooking with bugs, right? You don't cook with bugs on an
right.
everyday basis, but you were able to put
Um,
your fingerprint on the dish and make it your own. And I'm just not seeing that right now. So I'm hoping things change. So we'll see. So let's get to the draft point update. So we have our quick fire winner, Michelle, which gets you 5 points, but she was on the bottom two. So she got negative 2 points. So she actually has a net score of 3 for you on that one. Top of the judges table, we had Sue, which is on my team for plus 3 points. Savannah is on your team for 3. Danny is also on your team for 3, and Dan's on my team for 3. So those are actually Danny wins the elimination challenge, so he doesn't get the 3 points, but he does get 7. So we have Sue, Savannah, and Dan with 3 points each on the top of the judges table. Danny has 7 points for winning. On the bottom, we already talked about Michelle, and we had Rosica in the bottom two as well, so she gets a negative 2. So for our episode totals, that brings Team Southern Passion Lounge to 11 and Team Eat Your Content at 6. So a little bit closer this episode, a little closer in points there. But the show totals have the bigger gap there. You are at 60 for Team Southern Passion Lounge, and Team Eat Your Content. I am at 18. So closing the gap. I'm closing the gap.
Now I'm gonna tell you this: the one person on this show that I'm keeping an eye on, and he's slick. I like him. He's slick. Is Dan?
Dan is
No,
sneaking in there. The
is it
hometown
Dan?
guy.
Yes, I like him because he is when he after he won, he's keeping that track going of pushing out as best he can, how he can, and I like him.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like Dan too. He's really growing into this competition as well. So he's kind of my dark horse pick to hopefully get through. I love cheering for the hometown chefs on these shows. So
Yeah,
doing well. So Dan's doing well. But his savory funnel cake thing looked amazing. So I would definitely want to try that.
and like I said, that's why I say he's a hometown chef, so he's used to those products. He's used to like the supper club thing. He blew that out the water. Um, so I I, I like him. I do.
Yeah.
I really and I hope that he goes next to Restaurant Wars because I really want to see what he does in Restaurant Wars.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, he's my standout, I think, for this week as well. Even though he didn't win the elimination challenge, I thought he should have, but he's definitely my standout guy for this week. So I think we did it. No Last Chance Kitchen to talk about. I think hopefully maybe next week we'll pick up on Last Chance Kitchen. Rosika is eliminated, so she might be there. We'll see who joins her, whether it's one or two people. If that double elimination still hanging up in the air, so we'll see what happens with that. I want to give you a couple of minutes just to plug whatever you got going on. Any events people need to be aware of that you got going on over the next couple of weeks?
Just doing a couple of private cooking classes that's coming up. My spices, you can get those off of my website, chef-amadeus.net. You can follow me on Instagram and my fan page on Facebook, Fans of Chef Amadeus. I'm putting all my updates over there. I guess when this comes out, everybody, I'll be in Hastings, Florida this weekend at the Bacon, Potato, and Cabbage Festival in Hastings, Florida, promoting my spices. So yeah, that's about it. But yeah, follow me on Facebook, Fans of Chef Amadeus, and Instagram at Chef Amadeus, TikTok, Chef Amadeus, and my website, chef-amadeus.net.
Excellent. And don't forget to follow me on socials as well at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So make sure to follow me there. And also like and subscribe on the podcast flavor of choice. You'll be notified of when new episodes drop. Chef, thank you again for another great recap. We'll see you again next week, sir.
I look forward to it.